Daniel Stenberg with McKenzie County Economic Development.
Of course, McKenzie County, that is the lesser known of the Watford City fame. Is that how do you explain that to people, I guess, when they ask? Because it is McKenzie County, but nationally, kind of Watford City steals all the limelight, doesn't it?
Yeah. Not too many people know county boundaries outside of the very immediate area. And even when you get in our area, I think you find some people that might not even know what the county boundaries are. So Watford City is much more recognizable. Yep.
Does Watford City have an economic development, or are you the Watford City economic development?
Oh, well, that's interesting. Traditionally we've been focused on the whole county, including Watford City, and now Vanita Best has been. She's going to be doing a community development for the city, and so that will encompass some economic development. She just got hired within the past month, and so we'll work closely together. She's pretty versed in the legislature, so she's kind of doing that for them right now. But then she'll also be in the realm of economic development too. So we'll have more of a team for this area that way.
And who was that again?
Vanita Best. She was a county commissioner for 4 years, and born and raised in McKenzie County, and a rancher. And so she has lots of strong roots to the community.
So it's kind of the reason I was going with the county versus the town was because a lot of oil and gas towns are still in rural America, so to speak, and a lot of times, like down in Bowman, for example, I think they've got a county economic, but they're based out of Bowman, the larger town, and that's the case here. But it looks like you guys are expanding into kind of a new area, kind of a hybrid, kind of a test area. It looks like a community development. There's obviously going to be some lobbying involved, that sort of thing. So. Is that going to impact you on a day-to-day? It sounds like it's going to a little bit, huh?
Well, we'll just kind of be strategic about, instead of me going to necessarily all the meetings, we can find what her specialties are, and we'll do what my specialties are, and so we can kind of tag team things and just kind of do kind of cover more ground between the two of us instead of just being one person. So
that's a sign that not only is Watford City and McKenzie County growing, but there is some investment and some long-term thought being put into the county right now. Is that a fair thing to say?
Very much so. Yes, we're well past the kind of the frenzy of a few years ago, and we're kind of looking out 5 years from now, what's our community going to look like, and trying to build accordingly, because it's not crisis mode. We can do some strategic forward thinking planning for our community. So it's a good place to be in.
Huh, interesting. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about Watford City, McKenzie County, if you will, that known as the hot spot of the Bakken. You guys are going to be featured on a national show coming up this month. Talk to me about that. A travel channel, or what's that all about?
We're very excited about being on Travels with Darley. She came out last summer in June, so it is beautiful and green, and it's interesting to look at the pictures now when it's all cold and white outside. So we're really excited. That's going to be debuting on March 24th at 4:30 p.m. On Prairie Public here in North Dakota, but it's also going to be on public television throughout the United States at various times. Each state can kind of set their own schedule, so within the next month or two, people can find that out from travelswithdarley.com if they're looking for when it's going to be outside the state. But inside North Dakota and the Prairie Public region, it will be on March 24th at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So we're very excited to showcase the community to a nationwide audience, but I think it's also interesting to even people within our community to see what's going on.
Well, I tell you, you can always pass along to your local people what I'd like to tell people. In fact, just last interview with the gentleman from Louisiana, Gary Bodin, Keith Bodin, is that I believe what's going on right now is history is being made to where our kids' are going to read about it in history class, and Watford City is going to be its own chapter. So it's kind of exciting to see some of these national and international at some points really do documentation and kind of you're being documented right now. Watford City is. Does that come across to you? Is that absorbed yet? That you guys are being documented like that, for future generations?
Well, yeah, no, it's quite interesting when we get mentioned in national publications, or you get a call, not very often, but I got a call from the Wall Street Journal, or people from overseas who are doing journalistic endeavors, and they said, well, we've been hearing about Watford City, what's going on there, type thing, and it's just kind of like, because growing up here, we really wouldn't get much national press at all. So there is national press, some happening now, and that's interesting. But we just want to make sure that we can not just be known to a national audience, but we have to just make sure that we have a good community for the people who are living here, first and foremost too. So, and I think that like this Travels with Darley program, I think it's an awesome opportunity for us to just kind of sit back and realize, we have this national figure. She was in California before our trip, before she came to North Dakota, and then she went off to France after that. So her episodes are very world-class destinations, and she thought the Badlands, and she loved the Badlands. She was here during Home Fest, so she got to see some kind of hometown entertainment, and then also was on Lake Sakakawea to hear about Lewis and Clark and different things. So she was able to experience the historic aspects, and sometimes it just takes somebody else to tell you that, oh yeah, you've got good things going on in your community. That kind of helps you realize what we are living amongst.
Well, that's one of the fun things about this is Watford City has really been such a story because the growth has been record. I mean, you're talking record growths for national record growths for communities in terms of how many people went into a city in such a short period of time. So, you guys have seen the extremes happen, and the investment to have a Main Street, the investment for quality of life. It's got to be refreshing just to know that from some outside perspective, some people are looking at you guys and saying, good job. I mean, you guys are actually doing some things that, should be have some national notoriety and that sort of thing, because you got to remember, it was only 3 years ago when some of the kids were using outhouses at the schools because you guys are renovating and it was 20 below outside or whatever. Do you remember those days?
Yeah. No, kids can tell those stories in the present day too of their stories back in the day in Watford City. And on the topic of schools, it's exciting that we did get our bond passed with 80% of the vote to build our next elementary school. And then there was a second question as well that if necessary, there will be a third elementary school built probably within about 3 years if growth keeps up with projections. So the school situation is we're definitely continuing to experience good growth, and I think it's partly due to the leadership who's been on the proactive side of getting buildings built when they are needed and meeting the projections and not kind of waiting till things are in crisis mode.
Boy, 80% of the vote for a new school, that's got to be quite a stamp of approval that your community, who's really involved in the day-to-day operations of the oil and gas companies, because that's who's living there, are people primarily working in the oil and gas industry. Now, there are some other industries there too, but that to me, it sounds like there's a stamp of approval that, again, this is another sign the industry is doing pretty good out there.
Yep. Yeah, I think our people realize that that's kind of what we need to do, and we're just trying to get everything figured out. I mean, we had a lot of apartments built, and they're mostly filled up, but we have people that have been in the apartments for a couple of years, and they're looking for single-family housing, and so now we really want to see more single-family housing get built out, just because there's not much demand, or there's not much supply, lots of demand, and so we're trying to figure out if there's creative ways to kind of help spur that. But I think the market itself will be, from the sounds of it, there's going to be some some good single-family housing built, and we can use as much as the construction workers are able to produce, I think, for sure here. So that's one of the big things we're going to be looking to for the spring, is getting more single-family housing in.
Well, talk to me about what's going on out there, the economy at a glance, if you will. I got your latest newsletter. I see economy at a glance. There's a spreadsheet and everything. So, well, first of all, if somebody listening, some oil executive listening wants to get a monthly newsletter from you, make sure you plug that. And then also transition into kind of the economy at a glance a little bit, maybe a few bullet points that some of the people in the energy industry might want to know about.
Sure. Well, to get signed up, you can go to our website, econdev.mckenzie.county.net. And there you can see the newsletter link, and then at the top of that will give you an option to subscribe, and I do send out a monthly e-newsletter of just kind of things that have been happening in the community, so especially for people who are outside and are just interested in kind of keeping tabs with what's happening in the community. In that, I include an economy at a glance, which is mostly just public data that I've collected from various sources, so that people can see what's happening with our economy, showing our unemployment rate, labor force numbers, oil that's come into our community, the price of oil, different things like that. And then it's the most current month that's available, or a quarter, and then I also do year to date. And so, looking at year to date 2017 versus 2018, pretty much all of our categories are higher in terms of tax distribution, in terms of building permits and building permit values. All of those things are all kind of up, and I don't see any reason why 2019 is gonna be a slower year than 2018. Just, we have so many gas plants being built right now in the community, over $1 billion worth of natural gas processing plants, that all the construction jobs that they bring in, but then also there'll be long-term, very family sustainable type jobs that will be a part of the long-term gas infrastructure, in addition to all the oil field jobs that we have.
So those those $1 billion in gas facilities, those are going to be right outside of Watford, huh?
Yep, yeah.
Jeez.
McKenzie County produces 40% of the state's oil, but 50% of the state's gas. So just the way the formation is, it's just there's a lot of gas in addition to the oil here, and so then it's best to have those plants located to where the gas is being produced, so that they don't have as many pipelines. And so just kind of east of town there's plants being built, and south of town, and there's ones west of town. So and there's ones north of town. So it's every direction from Watford City there's gas plants.
So you guys are going to be just having nomadic construction workers for the next 3 to 4 years. Just that alone, building those plants and pipelines.
Correct, yep.
And so there's a few thousand people every summer right there. Just adding to your local economy. Hey, how far are you guys from Sydney? I forget I get mixed up between Williston and Watford. How far are you from Sydney, Montana?
It's about 60 miles.
Okay, it's about the same then that it is from Williston.
Williston's about 45, yep.
Okay, so it's not that far away. I know they've got, with One Oak, One Oak's got quite a presence in Sydney, and of course, One Oak has quite a presence, at least they're going to, if they don't already, in Watford City. What are some of the bigger companies that have made some investments in the last 5 to 10 years there in Watford City?
Well, One Oak is doing I think it's, and this is round figures, but I think it's something like $800 million for their 2 Demix Lakes plants that they're doing, and they already have a couple in our county already in terms of gas plants.
Right.
And so they're big on the gas side, but Whiting has an office here in Watford City, as well as ConocoPhillips. And ConocoPhillips they've been adding more employees as well. But yeah, no, we've got a lot of the big players right in our community. Hess has a lot in the Keene area of the wells, and things like that. So yep, lots of stuff going on.
Lots of good signs there, man. I mean, ConocoPhillips adding employees. You got a lot of construction being added, that sort of thing. And, you know, the only reason I bring it up is because, you know, there is some uncertainty right now with oil and gas prices that's going on, as far as some other plays are talking about whether the drilling is going to continue. Of course, the last production, I think, was down a little bit from Lynn Helms. That, of course, is somewhat winter related, but pricing is affecting. But I always go back to a few years ago when, you know, we were talking $30 oil, and they were still drilling close to 1 million barrels a day. Now, most of the activity was, I believe, right out of the Watford City area. Is that correct? That's where primarily most of the drilling was?
Yeah, a lot of they consider that the core area.
Yeah.
Just where it's most economic to be drilling.
Yeah. Let me ask you about a couple things here, and then we'll let you get your day going. I did want to let you plug the job fair coming up, and I do want to ask you about some local donations, that sort of things. I like to make sure that people get reminded that not only do the oil and gas companies pay quite a lot of taxes, they also contribute quite a bit to the local charities and the local social services and the local schools, and they actually contribute to the local fire departments and some of the other things that government should be picking up the tab on. The oil and gas company not only pays a lot of taxes, but they also donate to those social services. So I saw in your newsletter that ConocoPhillips gave a few bucks around town, that sort of thing. So can you take a few minutes, I guess, talk about that and maybe a few others? What the One Oak comes to mind. They were, what was it? They donated $1 million to the emergency room, and then 50 grand to some diagnostics thing shortly after that. So those are just a few off the top of my head, but I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about the one in your newsletter, and then if there's any other ones that you wouldn't mind mentioning, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no. So we have this thing called the McKenzie County Community Foundation, which is an endowment, meaning that all the money that is given to the foundation is put in a savings account, and then only the interest is given out as grants. And so it's really a long-term, it's in perpetuity agent where you'll always have money to give out each year. And this year there was about $5,000 to give out. That being just the interest earnings, so there's about $200,000 or $300,000 in the endowment, and so the foundation was able to give out $5,000. While ConocoPhillips, they came in and they said, hey, we want to match the amount that you're going to give out, and so we were able to give out a little over $10,000, and that was good because we had grant applications of about $50,000 that had been turned into us, and so they were able to help us extend the reach of the community foundation. So we're thankful to ConocoPhillips for that. But yeah, no, we've had a lot of good support from the industry in a lot of different things. The Rough Rider Center has companies that helped with signage, kind of the displays in the arena. Farmers Union Oil, there was E&M Services, Roosevelt Inn and Suites. But yeah, the hospital, that has been a huge thing that we were able and excited to have that debuted this past summer in July. And now we've been getting more doctors. We had an orthopedic surgeon, in addition to a couple other doctors just in the past month. And so we're really excited about getting more of our medical needs met right here in our community. And then the job fair that you mentioned that we have coming up, yes, we're excited about that as well. It's March 27th, and 3 to 7 p.m. at the Rough Rider Center in Watford City. Job Service North Dakota is the one who puts that on, but it's a multi-industry, so kind of any industry is able to come and set up a booth there. And for information about that, you can contact my office, but the best is if you just talk with the Williston Job Service office. They will have all the information you need to know about either registering as an employer for it or coming for the event as well. And so, yeah, we're making good use out of our Rough Rider Center. We've had a bunch of hockey tournaments happening, and then all of our Class A games have been happening over there. And we'll have the State Firefighters Convention coming in the spring, and the Petroleum Council will be doing their annual meeting in September, all at the Rough Rider Center. So we're making good use out of that building too.
Boy, it sure seems like it. I mean, every time you turn around, it seems like there's some kind of event going on there. And are these events being well attended? Is the community using it up, or is it just for show these days?
Yeah, nope. It's pretty active every night between all of we have gymnastics practice and hockey practice, and then the volleyball before Christmas, and now it's basketball season now, and yeah, lots of different activities happening all the time. In addition to people who are having their holiday parties there, and we also have a lot of education happening out there. Train ND is providing classes. Williston State, we just got a English language learner class and a GED class in there, in addition to all of the safety meetings that companies will have as well there. So lots of things happening all the time.
Pop quiz, I guess, because I don't know if you know this information. The former mayor, now the lieutenant governor, Brent Sanford, and I would talk about this. Just remind the listeners out there, what was Watford City's population before the oil boom, and what is it today?
Yeah, when I was growing up here, and even through like 2010, it was around 13 or 1,400 people, is what they were saying, and then now we're upwards near 7,000 or 6,700, I think, is what the census estimates us at. So it's about 300% population growth in 9 years.
And what's the projection over the next 5 years? I mean, because you just mentioned you guys are still getting more and more building permits happening. So, I mean, what's the projections 2025 or 2020 or whatever?
Yeah, the school just put out, or they hired somebody to do some projections for them, and they're showing their school enrollment to hit 3,000, over 3,000, and we're at 1,900 students right now, I think, or something. Or I think we're still projected to almost double again in school enrollments in 10 years, and so the town itself is we're a younger town, and so very childbearing years, but there was 257 births in 2017, and we have we have only six or seven classes of kindergartners, and so there's still much more growth to be happening as those babies who are just born make it up to kindergarten. There's going to be more growth going just from natural increase, not including those who might be moving into the community. So,
I mean, you guys could really, over a span of 15 years, go from 1,300 people to 15,000.
Yeah, it could.
That's incredible.
It's in the realm of possibility for sure. Yep.
That's incredible. Did you ever think growing up that would happen in your lifetime?
I did not. Nope.
So what's different then? Kind of wrapping up here. What's different now from when you grew up in Watford City? You know, I mean, there's and I'll tie it into current modern times for the listening audience. In North Dakota, there's a very big push right now for what's known as quality of life. Main Street USA, there's also another push to give incentives to businesses to create businesses that will create a quality of life in Main Street. And Watford City is one that has been on the target by a lot of people to create a different quality of life, because they understand there's some competition globally for the oil and gas worker. So is that a fair way to, I guess, phrase that question? Because it is kind of, there is a little bit of context to that when it comes to, you know, what's your downtown look like?
Yeah. No, we are very proud of our Main Street, and and thanks to the good economic conditions that the oil industry has brought, we don't really have any vacant buildings at all on Main Street, and we're kind of continuing to expand out out past kind of the core area. But we do still feel that the Main Street is something that we want to focus in on, and we have kind of our big main events like our Rib Fest and our Home Fest. They kind of all center on Main Street, and it just gives a good, fun, family atmosphere to all of those events that we have, and we want to make sure that we can still have a Main Street that we're proud of, and on all the businesses we're thankful for them that kind of put an extra effort on improving their outside signs. We don't really do incentives much at all out here. We kind of focus more on we're going to have really good the Rough Riders Center, that gets public dollars support, and the hospital. Kind of feel like we have to have good health care, good education, and good community events. And then we feel like that's going to be what draws people. And then that's kind of the biggest thing that we need right now is the workforce. And so if we can get more and more young people moving in, filling our jobs, they fill up our school system, and they kind of help complete the cycle that way.
So one more question for you about economic development. I don't want to focus just on Watford City. You're McKenzie County. Are there any other economic development things happening? I guess I'm not familiar with McKenzie County outside of Watford City. Is it Arnegard? Is that in McKenzie County, Arnegard?
Yep.
Hey,
yep,
what's going on in Arnegard these days?
Yeah, I mean, so there's Arnegard, which is about 7 miles from Watford, and then Alexander, which is about 22 miles, I think.
Oh, sure, okay.
And so they they kind of have their own strategic events or strategic advantages with their location because they are closer to certain gas plants or certain things happening in the oil industry. Alexander is about equidistant between Watford City and Williston, and so they can capitalize on that as well. And so if you look at Alexander's school enrollment, that has continued to go up as well. Arnegard has I always go there for the 4th of July celebrations. They have some just really good hometown community events that happen, as well as it's a quieter community for living, and so people choose to live there sometimes as well. And so, so there's a lot of opportunities kind of throughout the county depends on what you're looking for.
Any final thoughts? Any final words?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you calling, and I appreciate the chance to give a little update about Watford City. It's a fun place to live. A lot of kind of the familiarity of the old, but then a lot of new buildings coming in, new people coming in all the time, and it keeps things fresh and interesting. So that's what I like about it around here.